You are listening to the Life Coach School podcast with Brooke, Castillo, episode number 428.
Welcome to the Life Coach School podcast, where it's all about real clients, real problems, and real coaching. And now, your host, Master Coach Instructor, Brooke Castillo.
All right. Hello, my friends. Today we are talking with dudes about their feelings. So I had one of my best friends on, Ryan Moran, and he talked about his feelings and how he processes feelings. And I had so many people write in and talk to me about how that episode was like so profound for them and how many of like my women students gave it to their husbands and to their friends. And so we decided to do a podcast with a collection of LCS male coaches. Yes, they do exist. We're growing in numbers. And so I invited them to come on the podcast to talk about their feelings. And they're not nervous at all. They're super excited, very relaxed. And what is great about this is we didn't prepare anything ahead of time. So we are just going to like really be authentic, raw, and original and talk about our feelings. And one of the things I'd love like you all to do, and I'm going to call on you each individually, is talk about your own experience with learning the model and the tools that we teach and how you process your own emotions and how that's helped you. And then I'd love for you to talk about how you work with your clients and their emotions as well. And we're specifically sticking to men and their feelings because listen, it's so different. The man I'm dating right now, this is hilarious. I was talking to him and I said, "What are you feeling right now?" And his answer most often is nothing. And I feel like that sums it up. And I said to him, I'm like, "No, you're feeling something." He's like, "No, dudes don't have this happen to them." And so I try to explain to him that they do. And then I'm here also with my sons and their friends. And I was asking them the same question. And some of them were just like good or bad or nothing. So I love to open up this discussion, especially for my male listeners who have a hard time processing their feelings. So when I call on you, please introduce yourself. Tell me a little bit about you, and then let's just dive in. We'll start with you, Greg.
Hi, I'm Greg Nyman. I'm a coach here at the Life Coach School. I've been coaching for a little over a year. Before I came to know this work, I didn't have emotions, or at least I didn't think I had emotions, and that led to some really catastrophic health issues, mainly 2 heart attacks in 2020.
Oh my gosh.
So then I got with my sister, who's a coach here at the school, and decided to become a life coach. Needed a change of careers. And honestly, like it was the hardest thing I've ever done in my entire life.
Feeling your feelings?
Yeah, feeling.
You heard it here from Greg. It's the hardest thing you'll ever do in your life is feel your feelings. Yeah.
And going through certification, it was a total mind shift change. And it got rocky, it got ugly, it got dirty, and I wouldn't change it for the world. It was the best thing I've ever done for myself. And if dudes knew how challenging it actually was to face your emotions, then there wouldn't be this mantra of just man up and just deal with it, shove it down. It's like, no, like man up and deal with it, because it is, I mean, it will come out in very, very nasty ways eventually if you don't.
Can you give us some specific examples? Because one of the things, when I was talking to this man about it, he was basically saying like, I'm not going to sit around and feel my feelings. Like I have work to do. I have things to get done. Right. So can you talk specifically about that?
Yeah. So, okay, you're going to feel your feelings regardless, whether you say you are or not. Just a matter of acknowledging it. Okay, I'm going to not feel my feelings and I'm going to stuff them down and I'm going to get to work. Well, they're still there. You're still feeling them. You're just not acknowledging them. So if you bring them to the surface and say, okay, yes, this particular task at my job sucks. I hate it and I don't want to do it. And I have all those thoughts and emotions about it. And that's fine. I'm still going to do it because this is what I've chosen to do. The emotions can come with you and you can acknowledge them and you can bring them to the forefront. It doesn't mean you have to sit and just dwell in them. You can go, okay, I'm pissed off that I have to do this and I'm going to do it anyway. This is fine.
That's so good. So yeah, I think like he was saying, you either feel your feelings or you live your life, as if they were like mutually exclusive things that we do. And listen, I love what you said, Greg. It's like, you're going to feel them anyway. You're just not acknowledging, you're just pushing them away. It is affecting you. So I would love for you to speak just a little bit more about that. Like, how was it affecting you negatively without you even realizing it, that you weren't processing emotion?
All right. So this is very real. I wasn't sleeping. I wasn't eating, very irritable. The slightest little thing would set me off. In my particular life at the time, I either yelled or I cried. That was it. I had no in between. I was either pissed off or I was feeling nothing. There was very little happiness. And then it became overwhelming, and that's when the first heart attack happened, because I was so run down from hiding from my emotions for the past 40 years and just not acknowledging that, hey, what was happening is not okay. And it's okay for me to feel that way. And it's okay for me to say something to my boss about it and whoever else. It's okay for me to stick up to myself. You know, I mean, I'm a big dude. I'm 6'4", 370 pounds. Like, I'm a very large individual, and people large in stature, especially males, who just feel like we have to do more, and more is put on us. And, you know, okay, you're big, you can deal with it. Okay, you're big, you can deal with it. You know, big dudes don't cry. Big dudes don't have problems. They just handle things. Especially in the industry that I was in, which was shipping and receiving. It's very result driven. There's no thoughts and feelings. It's just, you know, deadlines and moving boxes from one trailer to another. It's right. There's no time to think, no time to feel. It's just get it done. I don't care if you feel bad, just do it. And
I think, to like reference what you said earlier, I think it's like this whole socialization that we have, that men are the strong ones and that showing emotion is weak. Right. And so I think it's important that we're not talking. We don't want you to go to work and be crying the whole time you're at work. We don't want you to be, you know, reacting to your emotions or emoting out in public, although sometimes that may be appropriate. What we're talking about is just knowing what you're feeling and actually releasing it and processing it through, so you can have a sense of awareness. And that, I think what you were referring to, takes so much more strength.
Totally.
Right? Because what we don't realize is men who are trying to be strong on the outside are terrified of their emotions on the inside. And that weakens us emotionally and physically. It weakens us. So I love it. Okay, let's go to you, Patrick.
Awesome. Hey, Brooke.
Hi.
So I'm a scholars coach, and I also work with guys who want to stop over drinking. And I just want to say, I actually worked with Greg at the end of last year in one of my own scholars calls with him, because my granddad had passed away and I was having a lot of trouble emotionally, like to cry, or like that release of wanting to cry. And there was a lot of beliefs around it, kind of similar to what Greg was just talking about, right? Like this false conception that we have to man up and just get on with things. And it like uncovered a lot of stuff for me about thinking that I had to be strong. Like I couldn't cry. I had to be strong for everyone else. So yeah, I mean, that's just from one scholar's call. It was incredible.
It's amazing, right? And I think sometimes it's just like permission. Like you are still a strong, capable human being who allows yourself to feel emotions. And in fact, it's so important to feel your emotions because, you know, I always say there's two things, okay? That the reason why you need to understand your emotions, and I'm going to let you speak, Patrick, but I'm about to go off on a little tangent. Here I go. But I used to go into all these meetings with men and I would want to talk about feelings. And we were in there talking about money, right? Masterminding about money. And I would explain to them, you have to be aware of your emotions. You guys are trying to outrun your emotions. And that will weaken you. And everyone that I was in those masterminds with got burnt out because there was no, like what we were saying, permission to process emotions so you can be stronger and you don't have to outrun yourself. So tell us a little bit about how you process emotion, Patrick.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's so good because it's like when we come to that acceptance that I can have all of these emotions and it doesn't mean anything about me still. I think that's been one of my biggest realizations. Yeah. So how do I process emotions? So really it's just about like taking that time to get out of my head, like to give myself a little bit of space from my analytical thinking brain and just to notice what's happening in my body. really just kind of slowing down. So I didn't even realize I was doing it at the time, because I had a lot of beliefs that I couldn't feel my emotions, which is part of why I started this whole journey of, signing up to be a certified life coach at the life coach school and then doing scholars, is because I didn't feel like I had that capacity, but obviously it was a lie all along. So meditation at the time, I didn't realize, like, just scanning through my body, like, that is feeling your feelings.
Yes.
Just slowing down, just noticing, observing. And that was really the journey. And there was a day where I just kind of clicked. It was like, oh, I have been feeling my feelings for a lot longer than I'd actually given myself credit for. So yeah, it was really powerful just to recognize that.
That's so interesting, right? Because I think what some of us believe is that feeling our feelings means actively emoting, right? Which means I'm either yelling or I'm crying or I'm acting it out. And what you're describing is you can feel your feelings just quietly within your own space, just by scanning. So if you're a dude right now, if you're a woman too, if any gender, however you identify right now, ask yourself how you're feeling right now and look to where you go for the answer. So Patrick, I love that you said that you go to your body for the answer. Don't go to your brain. Your brain has all sorts of thoughts. Great. We love the brain, but where in your body are you experiencing? Are you tense? Are you relaxed? Are you joyous? How does it feel? So if you're one of those guys that's listening to this and you're like, I don't feel my feelings, I don't know how to feel them. Yes, you do. You're feeling a feeling right now. And like, as Greg was saying, all you have to do is just acknowledge it. What is the feeling? And don't let it be just good, right? Pick an emotion, like get a list of emotions off the internet and pick one. It's really powerful. So Patrick, let's talk a little bit about how people, and I'm assuming that you work with men and women, or
Just
do you
guys.
work mostly with men?
Yeah, just guys.
Just guys. Okay. So how have you used the work on feeling your feelings to help people, men, stop over drinking?
So I think really just helping them, as we've been discussing, just to understand what's going on for them, like to recognize that they are feeling emotions. There aren't just these core emotions of like angry or happy, like there's a whole spectrum of emotions, and we get to explore what they are. But, through my journey of stopping drinking, they all started becoming available. Whereas, any kind of over thing that we do, they're not there. Like, with numbing them out. So
yes,
that process of removing those buffers that we have in our life really helps us to start identifying, oh, so yes, I was angry, but it was more like a frustrated angry versus like a agitated angry. Do you know what I mean? Like there's different flavors of emotions. So
it's so good.
Helping them to start identifying them.
It's so important. And listen, if you're out there and you're like, I don't think I have feelings, just quit buffering and your feelings will come right up for you. And I often say it's not about stopping over drinking. It's about starting to feel, right? Because if you want to drink and you don't have one, right, you are going to have an experience of a feeling. And if you really want to drink, you're going to really have an emotion. And for me, I did not think I could quit drinking. I did not think I could stop. But what I realized is I thought I couldn't quit drinking because I didn't know that the solution was to just feel any feeling. And the truth is we can feel any feeling. We are terrified of our emotions, but it's unnecessary, because if we're courageous, we can experience any emotion on purpose. And like what you're saying is when your awareness increases, you can refine identifying emotions. And as you refine them, then you get more access to your brain and what you're thinking, and then you can change them. So it's really worth doing, dudes. Promise. Especially if you want to drink less or porn less or social media less, anything that you feel like you're overing. The solution is stop doing that and let your emotions come up, and then process your emotions by, first of all, and this is what Patrick was saying, and Greg was too, is just acknowledging them and then naming them. And the more specific you can be in naming them, the better. All right, let's go to you, Jake.
Well, hello. Thank you so much for having me. Hello. Yeah. So my experience with emotions during learning all of this was, I just thought it was such a mystery. It's very much behaving like a emotional child, because if I didn't know, then I couldn't take responsibility.
Ah, yes.
Yeah. So I kind of devised my own very simple framework for feeling my feelings called FEEL. It's like acrostic. So the first like step is like find and follow the emotion, because emotions can change where they are in the body.
Yes.
And then explain, embrace, like explain.
I love it.
Embrace.
This is great. I'm stealing this. Hashtag Brooke Castillo's
Go
material.
for it. And then the last one is learn, like learn and love, regardless of what the emotion is. So yeah. So simplifying it for me really worked after having all this mystery around it, to take ownership and accountability for my emotion and how I feel. And so that's how I process my emotions on a daily, and also with my clients and also in scholars. So I'm a scholars coach, and I also do some copywriting for the school now. So
I love it. Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about this. This is actually interesting. I think that there is this conception that women are more emotional than men. Okay. So one of the things that I've heard pretty consistently is that it's hard for men to handle women's emotions. Okay. This is like big generality, but let's just talk about it in terms of any gender, any other person is coming to you with a bunch of emotion, let's say at you. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
You know what I mean? Like maybe it's your boss, maybe it's your, friend, maybe it's your significant other, whoever it is coming at you. How, as a man, do you stay aware of what you're feeling, but also dealing with this other emotion coming at you? Do you have any insight?
That's such a good question. I think it's noticing and having a relationship with your resistance.
Okay.
Becoming aware of that first. Well, if we are kind of entertaining and indulging in our resistance, then we usually carry things out in our A-line that are unintentional. Right.
And you know what? If we're in our own resistance for our own emotion, right, which is what you're saying, you're definitely going to be in resistance to someone else's emotion.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so there is the stereotype that men will then try and solve for other people's emotions so they won't have to deal with them.
Yeah.
So there's like all this fixing that wants to have happen, right? Let me fix your emotion. And what I just want to offer to all y'all is that if anyone is having an emotion at you, it doesn't have to affect you. Their thoughts are creating their emotions. And if you can stay in that moment and just stay aware of your emotion, like what Jake is saying, if you're not resisting your own emotion, you're going to realize there's space for all sorts of emotions. We don't have to fix them. We don't have to resist them. We don't have to avoid them. So important. So let me ask you this. What is the emotion that you most don't want to feel?
Oh, it's fatigue.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Now, is it physical or emotional fatigue?
Oh, it's totally emotional. So like my indulgent emotion is fatigue. I'm like, oh. And a way that I've gotten around it is I just gave it a really fun French accent.
Oh my God. Tell us more. How do you handle it?
I just remember there was like one day where I was in the shower and I was so exhausted, like mentally. And I was like, how could I have fun with my fatigue? So the loop that it gives me, I just gave it a French accent and I had so much fun with it by the end of that.
This is a fantastic idea. Yeah. For the thoughts in your mind that cause you to feel emotions you don't want to feel, give it an amazing accent. This is a beautiful tip. I love it. All right, Tommy, let's go to you. Tell us what it's like for you.
What's up, Brooke? Oh man, this has been an awesome conversation so far. Like I've been like wanting to jump in, but it's a panel, so I've been staying shut up, but I'm ready. My name's Tommy Geary. I'm a part-time scholars coach. So I coach scholars, and I also have my own coaching business that I run with my wife. We coach high-performing dads, help them find more fulfillment, more freedom in life. And for me, I think emotions can sound fluffy and kind of woo for dudes. And it's like our superpower. Like when we can start to feel like that's the way we can change anything in our life. Like that, if you're wanting to change a behavior, a habit, a relationship, the reason you're not doing it is because of a feeling. And there's something like keeping you stuck there. So for me, anger was one. Like I shouldn't be angry. Like anger is bad. I shouldn't be angry. And for me, that would show up as shutting down a lot, especially in like my relationship with my wife or my parents, and just shutting down. And then all of a sudden it would come out in like burst here and there. And like, I wouldn't even know why I was angry. And
this is okay. Let me just interrupt you here because this is key. And I think a lot of men don't understand this concept. And we kind of referenced it earlier, because I think when you say, I wasn't able to feel anger, I think some of us are like, good, because we don't want you to feel anger. And what we're really saying is we don't want you to react to anger. And what's so interesting is that the more you feel it on purpose, when you are experiencing, the less you're going to react to it. When you push it away is when you react to it. So can you talk a little bit about the difference between feeling angry or displaying it or reacting to it? Because it's a very important distinction.
100%. Yeah, man, when you said that, I could go a bunch of different ways, but I'm going to stick with answering your question. When I'm brushing my daughter's teeth at night, that is a time of day where anger shows up for me, frustration. And so here's what I'm going to say, what feeling it is. And we talked about naming it. And I think looking at a feelings wheel could be awesome when people are really having a tough time with it. But you also don't have to. You don't have to name it. You can name what you're feeling. So for me, anger shows up with like tightness in the chest, real tight in my jaw. I like usually like scrunch my shoulders or make a fist with my hands, and it gets hot and like bubbles up. It like, you know, there's a saying like it just bubbled up in me. Like that's real. That is the vibration of an emotion. And acting with that energy is me trying to argue with a 4-year-old about brushing her teeth.
Right.
And that usually doesn't get me where I want to go. And then I'm pissed that I got pissed, and it's all like not where I want to go.
Well, yeah. I mean, you end up feeling all this tension, right? This anger is like bubbling up and you want to release it.
Yeah.
Right. That's the urge is to release it by yelling or throwing things or, you know, however, acting it out in an angry way. So how do you release it if you're not going to do that?
Yeah. So there's a couple things. Like one is, you know, in that moment, I could like now, because I've practiced it, because I've changed my relationship with anger, I can realize that I can take a breath and be like, I'm triggered right now. I get it. I've felt this emotion before. If she continues to act the way I don't want her to, maybe I have to step out of the room and take a couple breaths or ask my wife to brush her teeth that night, like whatever it is. But the only reason I got there is because I practiced that. And I think that's the work in Scholars. Like you can, Scholars is the practice ground for life. Like come to a 20-minute call and I'll just like come with an anger. Like I got anger and I want to process it. Because if our feelings are created by our thoughts, we can just like think and feel whatever we want in that session. So I could be angry with I could have anger in my body from last night and then process it the next day. So,
and that's key, because one of the tools that I teach is how to be the watcher of yourself, right? And that's what awareness is all about. As soon as you watch yourself, which you just described so beautifully, Tommy, it's like you're watching yourself get angry and you're able to describe it in such detail. The minute you can observe yourself, you're out of it.
Totally.
You're not at the effect of it. You all of a sudden have authority of it. And then you can pause it and you can be like, I am so pissed right now. I am so mad right now. Even just saying that in your own head, just acknowledging it gives you so much authority over it because you're in that separate position of being able to witness it. And that is a strong place to be because you can actually control yourself without resisting the emotion. You're acknowledging it, you're opening up to it, but you're not reacting to it. And you're right. Then, it takes practice.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden your actions like change without you even trying to change them. You were just working on feeling.
I love it. So I think anger is one of the ones that takes the most practice. And one of the things that I recommend that everyone do is at first, you're only going to be able to process it afterward. You're going to lose your shit. You're going to get mad. You're going to lose your shit. And you have to process it after. Right? This is what happened. This is what I was thinking. This is why I reacted. And then as you practice that, then you can start sometimes catching yourself in the middle of it before you react, and you can pause and then you can process it. And like you said, go to a coaching session maybe and let it out later and talk about it. And then you get so good that you can actually prevent it. You can prevent any kind of reaction. Now, listen, we're not talking about preventing the emotion. We're talking about preventing acting out. Go ahead, Tommy.
Yeah, I was in something that I'll do with guys that are in scholars, because there's guy coaches and there are men scholars that
there are.
we get once in a while, which I don't know about you guys, but whenever I have a guy in my lineup for the day, I'm like, yes, this is going to be awesome.
Let's go. Yeah.
Putting the emotion or just the word emotions in the C line. And what are our beliefs about emotions? What are our beliefs about anger? And that can kind of put a curious cap on for those thoughts like guys don't have emotions. I don't know how to feel, like toughen up, like all of those. Anger is bad. And then you can see how the models show up, like, right? So when I feel anger, I think anger is bad. And then I feel resistance and then I push it down. And you can put emotions in different parts of the model and play around with it that way.
Yeah, I think that's actually a brilliant thing to question is like, what are your thoughts about emotions in general? But then what are your thoughts about sadness? What are your thoughts about love? What are your thoughts about empathy? What are your thoughts about compassion? Like really understanding your own real socialization as a man growing up, right? And what do you really want to feel? One of my belief systems around emotions is that the more emotional skill I have, the more willingness I have to feel, the more self-confidence I have and the more that I win. When you aren't afraid of feeling emotions, you eliminate a lot of fear from your life. And I think when men say, I don't feel emotions or I don't want to feel emotions, it's because they're afraid of how they'll react or they're afraid of that losing control, whether it's in a negative anger outburst kind of way, and then they'll get labeled that way, or in a feeling sorry for myself, pity, I'm weak kind of way. And what I want to say is feeling your emotions on purpose without reacting to them is the strongest stance I think we can make. Because then you set the biggest goals you can imagine because you're not afraid of whatever emotion may be part of that process. Yeah. Awesome. All right, Cam, let's go to you. You guys should come watch us on video too. We're videoing this whole thing. So come to the Life Coach School website.
We're so pretty.
Cam is so pretty. He wants you to see him.
Yes. If my voice sounds weird, it's because I am recovering from an illness.
Okay.
So we're just going to do our best today.
I think it sounds great.
Oh, thank you. It's my sultry,
very sexy.
My bedroom voice. My name is Cam Nichols, and I am the life coach for shy introverts. I like to help them stop hiding and start living without being anxious all the time.
Amazing niche. I love it.
Thank you. And part of the reason I chose it, I mean, I am my client, right? But part of the reason I chose it is because when it came to emotion, I was so emotional as a child. And then I just learned to shut it all down, which I think a lot of us do, right? Especially those who identify as male. And so we shut down. And then if you're shy and you're introverted, then you start to isolate, then you start to numb and you start to buffer.
Yeah.
Right. And so emotions, I think they've become my ultimate favorite thing in the world. Even though a lot of emotions feel shitty.
Yeah.
I still want to relish in them.
Like what? Give us some specific examples.
Yeah. So a couple of weeks ago, I was having some profound realizations from growing up. And I'm not going to go into the details of that because I'm still working on some processing.
Yeah.
But I remember standing in the kitchen, crying, sobbing, so mad, so furious. And it felt so fucking good. I had not allowed myself to feel those emotions all at the same time.
That's so amazing. Yeah.
Feeling both the good and the bad, the positive and negative. Because I think we do that a lot more often than we realize.
Yeah. Because when we block all our negative emotion, we can't get as much access to our positive emotion, right? I love that you said that. Sometimes just letting an emotion out like just experiencing it, just allowing it, stop resisting it. It actually, even though it's a negative emotion, it feels amazing to be able to just let it process through.
Well, and I think it's really important because especially there's a lot of people who emote internally, right? Mm-hmm. We kind of get in our heads and then we weaponize the thoughts against ourselves and the feelings and, oh, this feeling is bad. But it's like, yeah, our minds will lie to us. That's how they're designed. That's how we train them to be, but our bodies won't. They can't. Our bodies can't lie to us the same way our minds can.
That's so good.
So when we're able to drop into the body, like even just that sentence, what am I feeling in my body?
Yeah.
Like that's a huge mental shift for me when I say that, because that does allow me to feel and then choose to emote if I want. Because again, like when we look at the model, a lot of people are thinking that the magic of the model is the T line, right? Mm-hmm. Your T line creates your results. Like, no, it's the F line. F line drives everything.
Yes. That's so interesting. As you were saying that about how like the body never lies, I think it's so interesting in relationship. I'll be curious what your thoughts are on this, where I want you to feel something that maybe you don't feel, right? And I'll say to you maybe, hey, Kim, you should feel this way towards me, or you should feel this way right now, or you should feel this way about this certain thing. And I think sometimes we can have shame about how we actually do feel about certain things because we don't feel maybe the way we should. And I think that's another way we can kind of lock away our feelings. So how do you recommend we deal with that? You know, we start paying attention, we start seeing how we feel about things, and maybe, you know, the body doesn't lie. So maybe we start discovering truths about how we feel about certain things that maybe we didn't want to actually acknowledge, especially when someone thinks we should feel a different way. What is your suggestion as a coach for something like that?
I fucking love this question because this is basically my journey over the last several years in doing this work.
Yeah.
It's like when it comes to relationships, well, let me backtrack a little bit. When it comes to feeling the emotion, why should we feel shame about feeling any emotion, about having any desire, right? Or want, right? It's just the vibration. But Brooke, to what you said, like a lot of people will feel shame around having a certain emotion towards something or someone.
Yes.
And it's like, okay, what is the shame really about?
But I think the shame is about like, there's something wrong with me because I'm feeling this way. Right. Well, and so, I think it perpetuates this. I can't feel what I feel, like, especially like desire, maybe, right? Desire, just natural desire that you have for something you may never act on. You choose not to or whatever, but you're experiencing it, but you can acknowledge it and you have so much shame about it. What do you recommend for someone like that?
Yeah. I mean, the way that I personally handled it.
Yeah.
Was kind of going back, I think it was Patrick who said this, but really separating myself from my emotions. Because yes, I have emotions, but I am not my emotions.
Yes.
Emotions make up part of who I am. They're part of they are the experience.
Yeah.
But they do not make up my consciousness.
That is so important. And I think that if you're afraid of how you feel, you're afraid of acknowledging how you feel for any reason, I think that's really important. Your feelings are just caused by your thoughts. And some thoughts are programmed and habitual and unconscious. And it doesn't, because you have feelings that maybe you don't understand or you don't want to acknowledge, doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. And you can acknowledge those feelings. You don't have to tell anybody, but you can acknowledge them and experience them. And if you do, the chances of you acting on them or acting them out or acting on them to buffer or resist them is so much less. And so your body's never going to lie. I love that you said that. And so you trying to lie about what you're experiencing in your body can cause so many, like what Greg was saying, can cause so many long-term issues. And it's completely unnecessary.
Well, and one piece that I want to add is like, think about how much societal programming we just naturally have from living in the world.
Yes.
Right? Like when people are infants, when infants are infants, you have a child.
People are infants, yes.
Like, it's like, okay, there's certain milestones, right?
Yeah.
And then if they're not hitting the milestone, something's wrong with them. Then we put them in school. So we learn so quickly what is right and wrong. I say that in quote.
Yeah. Or good or bad. Like these emotions are
Yes.
good. These emotions are bad. Right.
And so if you can start to recognize, okay, what is societal programming?
Yes.
Versus like, it's like if your grandma gives you an ugly sweater for Christmas that she made you, and you like put it on and you absolutely hate it. And then you just continue to wear it for the next 20 years.
Yeah.
It's like, no, you have the option to take that shit off.
It's so good. It's so good. And being told like these emotions are bad. And if you have them, there's something wrong with you. And these emotions are good. I mean that you're a good person. Then if you're experiencing anything that has been programmed into you to be negative or bad, you are going to have shame and you're not going to want to acknowledge those emotions. So for example, lust. I remember when my kids were young and they were experiencing, and I was like, no, that's totally normal. And they were like so relieved. Right. And I'm like, you don't act on it. You don't have to act on it. You can manage it, but allow yourself to experience that and just know that that's very normal. And what if we believed that about every emotion? Every emotion that we have doesn't mean anything's wrong with you at all. You're just having a vibration in your body. It's not a big deal. Think of how many men could be set free by that, because especially like the work that Patrick does too. It's like you build up so much shame around desire and urges and wanting, certain things. And so we try and push that all away. I had the same experience with like Chardonnay. I just loved it. And I hated that I loved it. And I hated myself for having that emotion. And it's until I was like, no, it's normal. I understood the brain chemistry around it. Then it completely set me free. And I think that's true for all emotions.
Yeah. Emotions are not the problem. The actions that we take from emotions become a problem.
Yes, that's so well said. Awesome. Okay, let's go to you, Solomon.
Hey, Brooke.
Hey.
Hi, everyone. So my name is Solomon Natha, and I'm a scholars coach.
Amazing.
And so for me, my experience was, I think prior to coming to LCS and scholars and certification and all that, I was just one of those where I just had a lack of awareness. So I didn't even know what emotions were. Right. I think I had an idea, but I didn't know the actual breakdown of, vibrations in your body. And so to me, with that lack of awareness and education on it, I just connected what I was feeling with the outside world. So like weather, right? If it's a gloomy day, I'm going to be a little sadder that day.
Right.
Or someone says something like on the road, hey, that person and what they're saying is what's causing my anger. And so it was just very, emotional childhood connecting internal to external.
Well, and the issue with that, which is how most of us are socialized, other people hurt our feelings and we feel bad about things in the world that causes our emotions, is we feel like we have no control. So we just got to bury it and move on, right? Because the alternative is just to feel bad all the time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. So that was my experience. So that was prior to LCS. Now being here, getting certified, being in scholars, it's almost like you get your master's in emotions.
Yep.
Instead of just knowing the idea of it, you actually know the experience, and you're able to dive in a little deeper and tell what the different vibrations are. But it's just been life-changing to gain that emotional education.
That's amazing. So when you're coaching someone and they come to you and you say, what are you feeling? What's your now feeling? What are you experiencing? And they say, nothing.
Yeah. Well, that brought up even with what you said earlier, right? With your boyfriend responding with the same answer. Yeah. It made me think that it's kind of like when you're coaching people, you don't allow people to say, I don't know.
Right.
Right. Because it's a cop-out. It's almost similar to when someone says nothing. It's a little cop-out answer where they're blocking access to what's going on internally. So if someone is to bring that, right, I would just press a little bit further or harder just to, allow them to dive a little deeper, drop into their body, right? Yeah. So someone saying nothing, blocking access, maybe they're either remaining upstairs in their mind or just blink, but just pressing them and prompting them to drop down and, hey, access that. Like, what are you feeling? Sensations. And then I love just the questions that we're taught, right? Because those are just prompts to help redirect people from upstairs to downstairs.
Yes.
Right? Like, let them focus on what does it feel like? The temperature, the color, the shape, speed, movement, all of those things.
Yeah. As you were talking, I was thinking about this, what we were talking about with Cam too. I think maybe when, you're in a relationship with someone and you ask them how they're feeling and they think, oh, they should feel a certain way. Like, oh, I'm supposed to say loving right now, or I'm supposed to say in love with you, or compassionate, or excited, or whatever. And maybe what's happening is the person's feeling inadequate or ashamed or afraid. And when you're taught that, that's not okay, you need to buck up and be tough and not feel that way. Like you ask someone, hey, how are you feeling? And they say, oh, I'm feeling inadequate today. And then what we're talking about with Jake, then the other thing is, okay, well, let me fix that for you. Right. So you should be feeling a certain way. And if you're not, then we're going to try and fix it because there's something wrong with you and you should be ashamed, versus like, oh, welcome to Tuesday. We're feeling inadequate today. That's very normal. And we can be in the space of that. That doesn't mean that we have to not do anything or go crawl under the covers, although sometimes we probably should, but just acknowledging how we're feeling and noticing that. And then also acknowledging that we do have agency and control and that we can process that emotion and keep functioning if that's what's going on for us. But if we're having that emotion and we don't acknowledge it, we're never going to be able to process it, digest it, let it go, understand it. And that's the problem, right?
Yeah. And that's why I think education and just learning more about emotions and what they are is so vital, because what we're not aware of, we can't engage with it.
Exactly.
Right. Or we don't even know what the experience is. So educating yourself and then dealing with that other piece. Because that's where I was, I had all these layers. Like, not only did I not know what emotions were, but I'm also a male. I'm also ethnic. So culturally speaking, right, we don't, emotions aren't something we dive head into first. And so that was a big piece.
Yeah. And I think, for so many men, especially because of the way that you're socialized and what emotions seem to define something about you, right? Whether you're strong or weak. I mean, I think like if you look at kind of the socialization, it's like, the whole time you're growing up, you shouldn't cry. Big boys don't cry, and you should be strong and you should be capable. And then you get into a relationship. If, you're a man that gets in a relationship with a woman, then it's complete opposite. Tell me how you're feeling. Tell me what's going on for you. I need to feel your emotions. I need you to be, I feel like it's such a contradiction, right? Between what we're expected. And so I would just like to offer, like, as you start doing this work, I feel like you have to do it for yourself first. And it's not about telling anyone else how you're feeling, unless it's your coach, right? Who's helping you process your own emotions. This work isn't about being more emotional for somebody else. It's about finding your own strength. It's about developing your own emotional skill so you can enjoy yourself more. And like, it sounds crazy that like experiencing your emotions will help you enjoy your life more. And it will, because you will as soon as you stop blocking your emotions, you will open up to all the positive, the negative ones too. Right. But like we were saying, when you open up to the negative ones, you can start kind of relishing in your ability to process them. I think it's really powerful. Okay. Yeah. I'm going to go around one more time. And I just want you to give me just a few sentences we're speaking to men who are listening to this, who are like, I don't really get it. I understand this is good. I hear what you're saying, but I don't really get how this applies to me or what I should actually do next. So maybe we'll just offer a little sprinkle of advice for them. We'll start with you, Greg.
Okay. So this actually applies to my niche really well, which is male weight loss. We all know the things to do, right? Eat right, exercise, do all the things, right? But there's something holding us back, some sort of judgment for ourselves that is preventing us from feeling the emotions, which are the reasons why we aren't doing the things. Like, I'm not worthy, or, oh, I'm fat anyway, I'll look stupid in the gym, or, I really shouldn't want these things. Once you stop judging yourself and meet that with compassion instead of judgment, you'll be able to understand, okay, I went 3 days really, really good, and then I fell off the wagon, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Get back up, start again. No big deal. You don't have to beat yourself up. You don't have to judge yourself. Yes, that piece of chocolate cake looked awesome and you ate it. Okay, great. Move on. It's okay. And you don't have to beat yourself up and just, tell yourself all the negative things.
I love it.
No big deal. Feel the feelings and, meet your goal anyway.
Yeah. And for all you men who are trying to lose weight, I love this example. If you eat the cake or you eat the thing or you drink the beer, whatever it is that you didn't want to, you just ask yourself, what was it I didn't want to feel? Right? What was it I didn't want to feel? Was it restriction? Was it anger? Was it, entitlement? What was it you didn't want to feel? Because if you don't eat the cake, you're going to feel something. And the more you feel something, this is the thing, weight loss is my jam. You will get better at feeling emotions, the more emotions you feel. And the better you get at emotions, the better you get at your life. And the more chocolate cake you eat, the better you get at eating chocolate cake. So just decide what you want to be good at. Okay, Patrick, what do you have to say?
Yeah, I love that. It's so good. So I think for me, like one of the biggest hurdles when I was learning how to process emotion is like I was being confused about what it looked like and how I was supposed to do it. So I think like if any of the guys listening are in Scholars, like come and get process emotion with us, because what I found was the more that I was guided by somebody else, like it enabled me to like have that confidence in myself to do it. Once I started getting over like the resistance and weirdness to sitting and being with myself, like it just started making things so much easier. And now it's literally a case of like, I can be out and about and I can be noticing what's happening in my body. Like,
yes,
maybe even if it's just like a change in my heartbeat, right? Like that's happened a few times on this call. So it's just like giving me information. And that's what emotions are, right? Like the information, they're here to let you know something. So let's just find out what it is.
Yes. And listen, the more you know yourself and understand yourself and have awareness of yourself, the more available you are to your life and to yourself and to your relationships too. So I think it's like, this isn't that complicated. It's just as you're walking around, ask yourself, what am I feeling? And your brain's going to go, you're not feeling anything. You shouldn't be feeling anything. This isn't good. And then just be like, yeah, but what are you feeling? And see what comes up for you. All right, Jake. Go ahead, Patrick. Do you have
one more thing? Like, but even that question, right? Like, what am I feeling? Like, I notice resistance. So now I just say, like, what's happening in my body right now? And just that little reframe, just like changed everything for me.
Love it. So good. Because then you don't even have to use the word feeling. Just ask yourself what's going on in your body. That's just like a little sneak attack. I like it. Okay, Jake, go ahead.
Yeah. So if you're not sure if this applies to you, men out there listening, it totally does. You're not the exception. So that's what I'd have to say.
Perfect.
I think knowing the model and understanding that and come learn in Scholars, absolutely. But we're always taking action from our emotions. And by design, some of them will be unintentional or negative, and some will be intentional and positive. And so the idea is not to eliminate the unintentional, but it's to decide your discomfort.
Yes. That's so good. If you're going to feel uncomfortable, you might as well get something from it.
Yeah, exactly.
I love it. So it's like the discomfort of not eating the cake. What are the benefits of that for you? And think about all the benefits that come from that versus the benefit of having cake that doesn't get you anywhere long term. Yeah. So good. All right, Tommy.
So I think what I'd say to guys is that if this hits you, like the life that we live right now is usually go, 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 get shit done, plan, get something done, do it again, accomplish. And it's helpful. Like we need that part of us to be successful in this world. But there's another side, and that's slowing down. And when we slow down, that's when we start to get a little more familiar with our emotions, what's happening in the body. And like Patrick said, our body is sending us signals, like it's signals, it's information. And when you start to feel exhausted, when you start to feel burnt out, that is your body talking to you. Yes. And if you keep not listening by going, your body's going to shut down.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
And listen, this is what's happening. You are trying to outrun your own inadequacy feeling. You're trying to outrun your own doubt feelings, and you can't. You can't outrun it. So if you just slow down, I think people are afraid to slow down because they think they won't finish the race fast enough. But the opposite is true. If you slow down, then you can get leverage. You can find the emotions that will actually sustain you for the long run so you can actually get to the finish line. So well said. Okay, good. All right, Cam.
All right. So my advice for men or anyone who are like, where do I start? Start with positive emotions. Like, we talk a lot about feeling like the negative and stuff, but it's like, what's the point? You also want to feel the good stuff too.
Yeah, that's a great piece of advice.
So it's like, if you're having a great day, why? What are you feeling? What, like, truly, what does that feel like in your body? I was coaching a woman in Scholars just this morning, and that's not something that she had ever contemplated, was feeling a positive feeling. Like, intentionally.
Yes. Yeah, because the whole point of really understanding your emotions on the first level is really like kind of going, wait, I have feelings, and then feeling them, but then we want to learn how to generate them, right? And so how can we generate them if we don't even know how they feel?
Yeah.
So good. Start with the positive emotions. That's great. And can you generate positive emotion on purpose? I love it. Okay, Solomon, what do you have?
Awesome. So I love that there's brilliance in the basics. So I just want to remind all the listeners, especially the male listeners, why we do anything in life is because of how we think it'll make us feel.
Yes, that's right.
Emotions are so powerful. It's what's in between you and what you want to be doing is emotions. What's in between you and something you're wanting to stop doing, it's emotions. So identify those emotions. Then lastly, just like thought downloads help us to create space between us and our thoughts and help us see that we're not our thoughts, right? Identifying our feelings also helps us create that distance.
Yes.
So we know we're not these scary vibrations, unpleasant vibrations that we feel are connected to the world, totally separate. So when that distance is there, we're good. You're not scared of it. It's not going to kill you. Just do the next thing.
That's so good. Like when you're feeling an emotion, you don't have to bury it. It's not who you are. You can simply acknowledge it. And by acknowledging it, labeling it, naming it, you get space from it. And I love what you said. Men, whatever you think you want, it's only a feeling that you want. So don't tell me you don't care about feelings. The only reason you want to be rich, the only reason you want to be successful, the only reason why you want to have that beautiful mate in your life is so you can feel a certain way. So it's all about feelings. There's no way around it. I love it. That's so well said. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for coming on the podcast today and talking to all of us about emotions, especially kind of the socialization that men have. We really wanted to address and talk about, and I want to keep these conversations going. So if you are a man and you want some help and you want to talk about emotions, Self-Coaching Scholars is a complete safe space for you to come and do that. Nobody is going to label you or think that you're weak. In fact, we'll think the opposite. So have a beautiful week, everyone. I want to thank each of you for coming on the podcast and sharing and being so vulnerable. I really appreciate it. And we'll talk to you all soon. Take care. Bye, everyone.
Hey, if you enjoy listening to this podcast, you have to come check out Self-Coaching Scholars. It's my monthly coaching program where we take all this material and we apply it. We take it to the next level and we study it. Join me over at thelifecoachschool.com/join. Make sure you type in the THE lifecoachschool.com/join. I'd love to have you join me in Self-Coaching Scholars. See you there.